Welcome back to another episode of Everything MMA. Today's video is about skill, technique, and execution. No one can deny the charms of the most elite trick in MMA fighting, the flying submission. The swift action, the strong arm lock, and the unrelenting technique make it an exquisite weapon against the opponent. So let's look at the top 10 times fighters nailed this technique and owned the octagon. 10. Olivier Fontaine vs. Sofiane BENCHORA. Sofiane BENCHORA and Olivier Fontaine faced off against each other in the octagon in 2013. Little did we know one of them was about to deliver one of the most epic flying submissions in MMA history. Fontaine tried to deliver a kick in the start, but BENCHORA was swift to catch it in time. But the failed attempt didn't deter Fontaine because he was going in for the big kill next. With a swift grab of BENCHORA's head, Fontaine pulled him down with his other leg swung over his neck, but not without risking a self-knockout as Fontaine landed on his head. But we'd say it was worth it. And it all happened at the speed of light. It was so good, it even made rounds on Twitter. 9. Paddy Pimblett vs. Alex SAVVIDIS. This epic submission occurred in Cage Warriors, where Paddy the Baddy tried to redeem his greatness after losing the featherweight belt. So he ended up in the octagon with Alexis SAVVIDIS for the lightweight title, but Alex wasn't going to make it easy for him. He started with highly accurate and savage punches to Paddy in the second round, but one small mistake cost him a striking defeat. With Paddy against the cage, Alex seemed to be dominating until Paddy turned things around literally by grabbing Alex by the neck, using his legs, and subjecting him to an inevitable flying triangle. 8. NAMAJUNAS vs. CATRON. The year was 2013, and Rose NAMAJUNAS was ready to change her claim to fame. At the time, Rose was famous as UFC heavyweight Pat Barry's girlfriend, but her second professional octagon appearance and classic submission changed that. The match began with a quick combo as she faced opponent Kathina Catron. Then the two were locked up in a clinch, and it was showtime. NAMAJUNAS didn't wait for a beat before pulling off a classic flip, with Catron locked between her legs, and it was over. Catron was down with her arm in NAMAJUNAS' control, and there was no option except tapping out. This epic Las Vegas flying armbar made rounds all over the internet. Years later, when people talk about armbars, they never forget Rose NAMAJUNAS' name. 7. GARZA vs. JARBUIIN. The following mentionable flying submission took place in UFC 129, the debut of the flying triangle in the octagon. Pablo Garza was up against Yves JARBUIIN, receiving severe kicks. In his last match, Garza had pulled off a jumping knee, but nobody expected to witness an excellent flying triangle next. But when JARBUIIN's kicks got relentless, it was time to get in action. And within minutes of their clinch, Garza swiftly latched onto JARBUIIN and pulled him into a flying triangle. And UFC still remembers this epic debut moment. Adam Martin tweeted reminiscing UFC 129 and Garza's kick in 2021. Another tweeted, Pablo Garza confirms his release from the UFC. I'll always remember the flying triangle on JARBUIIN. Cashed on that. Thanks bro Pablo Garza. 6. Ortega vs. SWANSON. On number 6, the epic clash between Club Swanson and Brian Ortega at UFC Fight Night 123 in 2017 resulted in this flying submission. Cub Swanson was on a roll, aiming for a title run until he faced off against the dangerous Brian Ortega. Ortega, known for his deadly triangle chokes, surprised everyone with a sneaky move that halted Swanson. It was a high-intensity fight, with both fighters showing off their skills and going back and forth. But as Swanson lost composure, Ortega pulled off a jumping arming guillotine, leaving everyone in awe. Swanson was caught off guard, and before he could even react, Ortega had him in a tight grip. Swanson tried to escape, but it was too late. Ortega's technique was flawless, and he tapped out Killer Cub in seconds. 5. Vinny Magalhães vs. Raheem Cleveland. This flying submission occurred at PFL 9 when Vinny Magalhães took on Raheem Cleveland. Vinny had much to prove, having been knocked out in his previous fight. But he came out swinging and pressed Cleveland against the cage with a whizzer. And then out of nowhere, Vinny went for a flying triangle. It was risky, but Vinny executed it perfectly and locked in the triangle choke. Cleveland tried to defend, but Vinny was relentless. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Vinny switched to a reverse triangle and accessed Cleveland's arm for a brutal Kimura finish. 4. Chonan vs. Silva. The flying scissor takedown by Chonan against Anderson Silva in Pride 2004 is another epic flying submission. The pound-for-pound king was on a 3-fight win streak and seemed in control of the fight against Japanese opponent Chonan. But then out of nowhere, Chonan executed a flying scissor takedown and transitioned into an inside heel hook submission. It was a moment that forever cemented Chonan's legacy in MMA and earned him the title of Submission of the Year for 2004. This move was a work of art, showcasing Chonan's skills as a striker and submission artist. 3. IMADA vs. MASVIDAL. Third on our list is IMADA's iconic submission at Bellator 5. Initially, former Street Fighter Jorge Masvidal dominated the octagon for at least 3 rounds with his swift punches. But minutes before he could become victorious, IMADA pulled off an inverted triangle that caught Masvidal off guard. Even though he was scrambling to escape, Masvidal couldn't get out of the hold and passed out. And we bet Masvidal wishes he could forget that fight every day. Even today, Twitter remembers it as the most disrespectful submission. 2. Hall vs. PENN. The inside heel hook is the king of all submissions, especially when combined with an Imanari roll. And Ryan Hall is the master of this complicated award-winning technique. He executed a flawless inner Imanari to beat the renowned BJ Penn by rolling into a backslide inverted heel hook within minutes at UFC 232. 1. Mighty Mouse vs. BORG. This submission tops our list as the best. Mighty Mouse was 1 win away from breaking Anderson Silva's record of 10 title defenses when he faced off against Ray Borg in 2017. And he looked committed with his brutal attacks in the first 5 rounds. But the real action happened in the last 2 minutes. It was time to invent the Mighty Armbar. It almost felt like Ray Borg was a ragdoll when Mighty executed a suplex mid-air followed by a swift arm lock showcasing his grappling skills. And that's how Mighty Mouse ended up on the top of our list of the best flying submissions of MMA. Alright folks, that's all the action for today's video. We'll be back with more in another. Until then, peace out. And don't try these at home.